Hello and welcome to LA Rider, Louisiana's favorite motorcycle television show. I'm Tammy Arender. So glad you joined us again this evening. Tonight we begin a series of reports on one of the South's greatest treasures and one of the top 10 motorcycle rides in North America. And the best thing about this ride is it begins just a few hours away. I'm talking about the Natchez Trace. It's one of the oldest highways in the USA and one perfectly suited for motorcycles.
On a cool, slightly overcast April morning, 15 riders entered one of America's most unusual national parks. A park that is little more than a mile across at its widest point, but 444 miles long, stretching all the way from Natchez, Mississippi to Nashville, Tennessee. The Natchez Trace Parkway is one of America's oldest highways. Created by Native Americans like the Choctaw and Chickasaw as a trading route, and later adopted by early American settlers and flatboat operators, the Trace today is a beautiful two-lane strip of perfectly maintained asphalt, which gently weaves its way through Mississippi, a portion of Alabama, and on into the hills of Tennessee. No commercial traffic is allowed. The speed limit is a mild 50 miles per hour, and the scenery is fantastic, making this a perfect trip for two wheels.
My name is John Alson from Columbus, Georgia.
Gary Allison from Bartow, Florida.
Greg Allison from Lakeland, Florida.
And I'm Tom Allison from Tallahassee, Florida.
We're the Allison brothers.
Our journey up the Natchez Trace was suggested by our friend Tom Allison. Tom, a retired U.S. Army Lieutenant Colonel from Tallahassee, Florida, and his brothers John, Gary, and Greg are all riders. Last year they rode Route 66, and this year they asked LA Rider to lead them up the trace. Brother John, a U.S. Army helicopter pilot now stationed in Georgia, also brought along fellow Army pilots Dan Hann and his wife Linda of Gloucester, Massachusetts, and Dan Maley of Columbus, Georgia, as well as John's old friend and fellow pilot Dean Willis and wife Alyssa from Pensacola, Florida. Also joining us were novelist and freelance writer Chuck Hustmeyer and his writing partner Christy Sprague and attorney Jeff Warrens, all of Baton Rouge. Besides being a great ride, a trip on the Natchez Trace is also a history lesson of sorts. There are numerous stops and pullovers all along the way, where you can learn more about the history of the Trace, the people who used it, and what life was like in the early 19th century. Just a few miles above Natchez, the U.S. Park Service has perfectly restored one of the inns that once operated along the Trace. This is a must-stop for any Trace journey. During its heyday in the early 1800s, there were dozens of inns like this up and down the Trace, offering travelers a place to stop, enjoy a home-cooked meal, and rest for a while.
This room served as a bar or a tap room for the travelers traveling up the Trace. And they were not on Harleys, they were walking or riding horses. They wished they were on Harleys. They would charge them about a quarter in Spanish gold, which today would be about $25 to $30, but they did get two meals and in other words, two hots and a cot. The family built a two-story dormitory on the other side of the spit rail fence called Sleepy Hollow. 2 floors of wall-to-wall corn shuck mattresses in 1799. The travelers just came in, grabbed a mattress, and lay down next to another traveler, kind of like a flop house.
One of the great things about riding the Trace is there are no billboards or advertisements of any kind. Additionally, there are few if any signs of civilization along the Trace, except for historical sites and an occasional farm or two. Even though the roadway passes near several villages, towns, and even cities, the Park Service has done a great job of hiding them from your field of view. This, however, means that you have to plan your gas and food stops in advance, since the exits are only marked with the names of towns and don't tell you if they are 500 feet or 5 miles off the exit.
Well, I got a whole list of them. Depends on which way you want to go. Closest.
Hey, you make it, Greg. I guarantee it, man.
Hey, back to you. 8.5. Yeah, take that one, man.
A good map or GPS can make your trip a little easier. The Park Service offers a great Parkway map, which is available at various stops along the way.
Are we there yet?
Do a little planning ahead, and your trip along the Natchez Trace can be very pleasurable. For LA Rider, I'm Bob Courtney.
Next week, we continue our ride on the Trace, and we hit the halfway point and pay a visit to the King. Stay with us when we come back. TW introduces us to a man who has a lot of toys.